Welcome to Postcall Beyond the White Coat, the podcast where we explore how doctors are impacting healthcare differently. I'm Dr. Selina, your host and co founder of Disruptive Doctors. At Disruptive Doctors, we're building a platform to help doctors like you impact healthcare differently. Now, join the movement and sign up to our website to connect with a community of forward thinking doctors who are impacting healthcare differently. Now, today I am excited to introduce Dr. Avnesh Ratnanesan, more fondly known as Dr. Avi, a doctor whose career journey is nothing short of extraordinary. From practicing medicine to climbing the ranks in the pharmaceutical industry to becoming a filmmaker and now a global thought leader in business strategy and leadership. He's currently the founder and CEO of Dr. Avi Global. Dr. Avi's path has been colorful and unconventional, but what drives a doctor to take such a diverse path? And how does one connect the dots of an unseemingly unrelated experiences? Now, as doctors, we often find ourselves at crossroads, wondering if there's more beyond the clinical walls. Now, Dr. Avi's story is one of following your purpose, finding your Ikigai, even when they lead you far, far from where you first started. Now, join us as we dive deep into his journey, exploring the highs, the lows, and the lessons learned along the way. In this episode, you don't want to miss this. So, if you're ready to be inspired by your peers who are leading the change in impacting healthcare differently, stick around. This is Post Call Beyond the White Coat. Hi, welcome, Dr. Avi.
Hi, Selina. Nice to see you.
Yeah, maybe you can introduce. I know I've already did an introduction for you, but perhaps you can introduce yourself to our audience. What is it that you do?
Okay, sure. Well, I'm obviously Avi Ratnanesan, and right now my key focus is as a master coach, international speaker, and trainer as well. So I generally coach CEOs on leadership and business growth, which are two of the biggest priorities, but also work with C-level executives and middle management on developing their skills, their leadership skills on managing people, managing business and operations, and ultimately making a bigger impact with the work that they do. So I do that on in small groups or large groups, but I also do that in front of thousands of people when I speak on stage, whether that's at a World Congress, a national conference, or an offsite, a team offsite. So there's quite a variety of ways in which I sort of support various leaders at the moment, and it's a really exciting time in my life.
Well, and all this started as a career in medicine. So, whose idea was it to go into medicine?
Definitely my idea. I wanted to be a doctor since I was a kid. That was the out of my three life choices. I think it was doctor, lawyer, and pilot. Well, I think if I remember going back to primary school, and but doctor was always number one. So I never really deviated from that all the way through to university. Parents were obviously very supportive. Both my parents were dentists. Because my dad was a dentist, and once upon a time he also wanted to be a doctor, but just didn't work out for him. He ended up being, a global president in dentistry, but he sort of definitely was very supportive in my medical ambitions.
Well, so you're Malaysian, you graduated in UK, but you started working in Australia, so you completely skipped Malaysia altogether. So why skip Malaysia?
Well, I think so. I did my basic medical degree. I graduated from the University of Sheffield. Did my house here, there, and then part of that was also uh, after doing that first house here, I felt that something was missing, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was, and so I felt like I needed to practice medicine in another country, and at the time, a lot of English doctors were going to Australia to work in as a but different health system, and some were saying that it was more fun, not more fun, but a little bit more freedom, a little bit more well resourced, and so on. So I managed to get that opportunity initially as a locum in Australia, and that was great. So it wasn't so much trying to skip somewhere as opposed to just trying to find another environment that I could practice a high level of medicine, and also give it more of a goal, right? Because even though even after the first year, I felt that, well, there's a lot of joy in this, but there's also something missing, and I couldn't really figure out what it was. So trying another health system halfway across the world was my answer at the time.
So, how was it after moving over to another healthcare system? Was this feeling of missing something still there?
So yeah, when I went to Australia, it was very interesting, right? So in the UK, there was a lot of disillusioned doctors and nurses, and this is going back now almost 30 years. Can't even believe it's been that long. 20, almost 25 years. And so, I felt that, culture was really important in a place that I wanted to work. And so part of going to Australia was to try medicine in potentially a different culture, not just um, national culture, but medical culture, you know, and somewhere that was a bit more resource. And I ended up at this hospital called Greenslopes Private Hospital, which was it was a veterans hospital. It was funded by the Department of Veterans Affairs. And so all the patients could basically get anything that money could buy, right? Because they were all ex-military, they had served the national interest. In Australia, they treat them super well, and basically, you know, the budget is kind of almost endless for different therapies, right? So it's very, very different. In the UK, I had to go and beg for an MRI. I had to go up to the radiology department, meet the radiologist personally, and say, "Hey, please, can you give me an MRI for this patient?" And or see even CT scan, right? And they would just ask you like a million questions. And then I came to this Greenslopes private hospital, and I was like, okay, my first week there, I was like, okay, I got to get a CT scan done. I said, where's the radiologist's office, so I can go and beg her for the CT scan. And they were like, what do you mean? Just fill out this form, and it'll get done. I was like, what do you mean? It's just like I just had to fill out a form, submit it, and like later that afternoon they got the CT scan. So it was a much better culture, so much better resource, and so on. But even after that, I had a chance to try many other specialties. Even after that, I still felt like something was missing, and I didn't really know what it was. Yeah, so that's when at that point, after doing a year there, I really had to take some reflection time, and I took some time off. I decided to come back home to Malaysia and just do nothing, and I did nothing for about 7 months. It was very frustrating. I went to learn French, because that was the only thing I wanted to do that I could think of in my spare time. And whilst I was learning French, I realized that I had other interests, I had other skills and abilities that I had in school that I wasn't really using in medicine. And I was good at math in school, and I seemed to also be reading the business news quite a lot. And again, I don't know why. I was just interested in business and management, but I had no formal education. So in that time off, I started exploring, well, how do I do this? How do I explore more of the business stuff, that I don't know much about? And and a few of my cousins had done an MBA, Masters of Business Administration, and there was not many doctors at the time that had MBAs. And so I asked them, well, would they take someone from medicine? And I was doing medicine in Brisbane as a senior house officer, which they call senior resident. And I said, what's the program like at University of Queensland? And they said, oh, it's very good. They did it themselves. And so I said, hey, I'm good at studying. I was good enough to be a doctor. Maybe I should study business, do an MBA. Maybe I could be good at that, and then figure out what to do after that. And so, fortunately, the hospital that I was working in Brisbane, before I took my time off, like they said to me, Avi, if you want to come back, just come back. Just come back part time, do locums with us. They'll pay for your business school fees. And so at the time, I was still had my medical loans, and then I hadn't even paid off those yet, and I was wanting to do a business degree, which is crazy because that was going to cost even more money, right? So it was really tough. It was really tough to make that switch. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Would you recommend doctors to take up an MBA? I mean, because I've gotten a lot of those questions. Should I take an MBA? What would your advice be for those doctors?
You know, at the time, right, because I demonstrated, interest in business, finance, math, and so on, I just needed some way to figure out what I wanted to do, and the MBA seemed to be, for me, the only way at the time to explore these new outlets in business and these new subjects. Looking back now, if I look at what's available today, there's so much more information available today. Courses, Udemy, Coursera, the Disruptive Doctors program, which is amazing. There's so many ways to figure out what you're interested in now that is much more, how I'd say, low risk and low cost, right? Whereas back then it was literally, full degrees or diploma certificates or something like that. So I would say explore other things first that are kind of more low risk and low cost, that test whether you have an affinity for a certain subject, or try doing your Ikigai before you make any kind of switch. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend jumping into an MBA straight away.
Okay, so did you go back?
I did, yeah. So I did. I went back. The hospital said, "Avi, great. Just pick up shifts here whenever you want," which was great. But I really had to reduce my own personal expenses quite a bit because, again, I was loaned up to the max. I remember, going to the shifts, and at one point in time, I didn't have an apartment. I had to stay in a hostel, a student hostel, with undergraduates, and it was this really shitty hostel, and I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor with like in a room that was small and was brick walls that were not painted, and there was spiders coming out of the holes in the walls, and I was just looking at the ceiling and I, well, what the hell am I doing? Like, I'm a doctor. I spent 5 years in the UK. I'm doing a business degree, and I still have to sleep on the floor on a mattress, no bed, with spiders coming. I just had this dream of one day I'll get into business and do really well. And I just had to stick on with that. So I did. And when I was doing the subjects, what helped me through it, I think, I was just acing everything. I was just distinctions in every subject, and I finished off on the dean's honor roll, and I had a lot of comments from lecturers saying, "Avi, you're going to be a captain of industry one day." And I didn't know what this captain of industry thing meant, but they're basically saying you're going to be good at business, you're going to lead a company probably one day, and that sort of thing. So that kept me going. And after I did that, I got a job in Sydney. So I was in Brisbane, and there wasn't much sort of biotech or pharma in Brisbane at the time. So I got a job in Sydney at a biotech company, and then soon after I got headhunted at Pfizer, which really I was there for 4 years, and that just blew up my career basically.
And I saw that you moved up the ladder quite fast while you're in Pfizer. Is that normal, or do you think there were other factors at play here?
It was not normal. At the time, I was one of the few that had a medical degree and an MBA at the age of 29. You know, so
Wow.
before 30, I already have like two, very established degrees, and even the MBA was a 2 year degree that I finished in 16 months and still got on the dean's honor roll because I had to, because I didn't have any money. I had to go and I had to earn some money as fast as possible. So I accelerated it, didn't take any holidays, just crammed it and did that. But when I got started getting the jobs, I was learning super fast, and I was fairly liked as well, which was good. Like, I didn't realize that's an important thing in the workplace because you just do your job in medicine and that's it. But the interpersonal politics was also really important. And I think because I didn't know anything about politics, that was an advantage. I wasn't trying to be on anyone's side, I was just being myself. So, all these kind of skills that you inherently have in you are actually skills that are valuable in workplaces. And so, what happened was I got recognized very quickly in this one company, but actually had a tension with my boss. My boss at the time felt quite threatened because I was so highly qualified. And I also I didn't really know that someone could be threatened about their job or career. I didn't know that that was a problem people had, because in medicine, like I said, you just do your job, you finish your 1 year, then you get promoted. There's no, like, there's
Yeah,
no
nobody
success.
will climb over the other person because you have your specialists, your consultants. There's no way a
Yeah.
houseman can suddenly become a consultant.
Yeah, correct. There's this hierarchy. It's just you just follow this process, right, step by step. But in the corporate world, it works very differently. And so this manager felt very threatened, and so it was her boss, actually. There was two levels up from me that I befriended, and she noticed that I wasn't kind of really engaged at work at some point in time because of this tension. And she got me to a conference one day, and she saw a recruiter. I didn't even know what a recruiter was at the time. And she found his recruiter, asked him to come to the table, and said, I can't remember what his name was. Let's call him Paul. Paul, this is Avi. He's too good for us. He's overqualified. Find him a job, in a better company than us, right? And that was already quite a good company. So she was super selfless. She's my friend to this day. Like 25 years later, this lady is still my friend, and I go to her house for dinner in Sydney. So this recruiter came along and he said, "Oh, look, I've got this job of opportunity. It's come up at Pfizer. It's associate medical director, pretty senior position. You need to have 2 years minimum qualifications to apply. And Dr. Avi, you've got 10 months, so with all due respect, I'll still submit your CV, but, just bear in mind, you're going to be a bit of a long shot." Anyway, after about 6 interviews, I got the job. And which, again, that was very fast. And then in 4 years, I became chief of staff at Pfizer in Australia, which was a $1 billion company, number one company in the industry by size and revenue at the time for prescription pharmaceuticals. And I remember leaving the previous company, Sorono, and the CEO called me into the office. He didn't even know where I was going yet. And he called me in the office and go, "Oh, I heard you're leaving. That's such a disappointment. You haven't even been here one full business cycle. You've only been here like 10 months." I said it was about 11 months. Yeah, you haven't even been here a year. How can you know anything about business? If you stay here a few more years, one day you'll be like someone in a really senior position in a company like Pfizer. So, like, where are you going? And I said, "Oh, I got the associate medical director job at Pfizer." And he just stood up and says, "Oh, okay, well, congratulations. I'll see you later." So I think that life, you just have to go for what you want to do, and eventually, if you put the effort in, the rewards will come.
Yeah, speaking of which, from medicine, you went to pharma. Now, that's very relatable. But from pharma, you made a massive leap into filmmaking. So, and that's completely off the map, right? If it's in within healthcare. So, how did this happen?
Yeah. So it happened because after about 4 years at Pfizer, believe it or not, I was getting so there were a lot of restructure. I was doing really well. I was a top talent in the top talent quadrant at Pfizer. Most likely to be CEO one day, and so there was. And Pfizer was very, very good. The HR at the time was very, very good. A lot of really talented people that were very focused on developing talent and so on. And there's a convergence of a few things that happened that caused me to leave. One was that I was doing filmmaking on the side, and kind of I just did a short film, and that short film I managed to get entered and was screened at a film festival in LA, right, in West Hollywood. And I went for that, and it ended up winning the Best Directorial Debut Award for an international short film. So that was one thing that happened. The second thing that happened was the company had restructured, and technically I bumped into the CIO. His name was Boris, and Boris came up to me in the corridor and said, Boris told me one day, "Oh, Avi, I'm leaving Pfizer." I said, "Why are you leaving?" He said, "Oh, you know that restructure that happened 9 months ago?" I said, "Yes." "Well, they told me back then that if I didn't really like my job, I could take a voluntary redundancy because my role changed at the time. His role changed at the time." He said, "What? So you're going like a with voluntary redundancy, you're getting this big package because of something that happened 9 months ago?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I was like, "Hang on, my job restructured 9 months ago, and I haven't formally landed anywhere as well, right?" And the third thing around this that was a factor was throughout these years, I always had these business ideas, many business ideas that I wanted to kind of explore. But in a company like Pfizer, you can't move ideas very quickly. It takes
Yeah.
time. There's a lot of
Corporates,
bureaucracy.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
layers.
there's a lot of layers. It takes a long time to get resources. Now it's still a great company. A lot of my skills I've learned today was because of the training they put me through there. But I wanted that freedom to be able to express my ideas and turn them into reality faster, right? And when this opportunity came about for a potential voluntary redundancy, I remember that thought going through my head, and then driving to work the next day, and I made three phone calls on that drive to work. Two were my best friends at the time. Both of them said exactly the same thing, and they said, "Avi, for as long as I've known you, you've always wanted to start your business one day. So this might be a good time. You might get the package and then start your business." And then the third person I spoke to was a medical recruiter in the pharmaceutical industry, and she said to me, "This is you don't get many chances like this where you can get a package in your life, and if you can get it, do it. And if it fails, you can always come back to the industry. There'll always be a job for you." She said she'll get me a job. It'll be easy, right? So I said, "Why not?" Right? And that was 2010, 14 years ago, and I've not looked back. So that's really that allowed me to have the capital, and I was relatively young as well, 34, at the time to go out, and I didn't have kids or anything like that. So, I was able to take risks, and go and start something new. So that's how I started my first business. It was in the film and mobile space. So at the time, I saw mobile phones were starting to have screens and people were shooting videos. So I created the first mobile phone film festival in Australia, where all the films were shot on mobile phones, right? So it was also innovative, disruptive, because I'm really into innovation and so on, but also brought that filmmaking quality to it, right? Now, obviously, you can make whole films with phones like easy, but back then, you still have to use a lot of creativity to do that.
Well, you sound like you were way ahead of your time.
I tend to be almost always. I'm very much got that kind of pioneer DNA. Once you know that about yourself, you stop judging it, and like that's just me. So I've got because now I analyze. I use a lot of neuroscience when I work with my clients and so on. And so a lot of what I do is actually analyzing their brain patterns, their preferences, and so on, as to why they behave certain ways and what would be ideal for them to be more successful. Whereas these are all things that I picked up over time. So in my case, because I have very strong what they call futurism, I'm able to see what's coming in the future, what the problems are going to be, what's going to be big, and so on. So and I'm generally the first to execute on certain things, right? So now I have a clone coach. So I've cloned myself and turned it into an AI coach. I'm the first in the Asia Pacific to do that, where my clone can actually coach people through a phone, where I've downloaded a lot of my brain and data and my books and YouTube videos onto a clone. So I guess my point is, in time as you grow up, you start to learn what your strengths are and how to behave and what your preferences are going to be, and also then how to mitigate the risk around that, right?
Well,
But
okay,
often when
so
you
many points. So
go
many
on.
points you brought up. Yeah, well, let's circle back to that. But before that, I mean, you've made so many transitions. Like, what were the challenges? Moving from one sector to another, one job to another. What were the challenges for you? Because from what you're telling, it sounds like it's all bed of roses and it's easy for you.
It's I think I have a very strong will. When I've decided that there's something I want to try, I have a high degree of risk appetite that I'm willing to go out and try it. A lot of people in medicine do not have a high risk appetite, neurologically, and that's why they get into medicine, because it's a very safe industry, it's a very safe profession. You will always get a salary and so on. Whereas those parameters aren't so kind of locked in my brain, and so I'm able to put that as the number one priority in terms of I value freedom of thought. I value that freedom of expression. I am technically very proficient, and I've got very strong practical and implementation and strategic skills. So I can take an idea and make it a reality relatively quickly, right? The challenge is enormous, because there's the financial challenge every time, right? There's no salary. None of this has got a salary. All my ideas, no salary, no fixed salary. You got to find your money. You got to find your customers. You've got to start it all from scratch. You got to start a brand from scratch. You got to start a company from scratch. And so it's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. I remember when I was doing the film work, and when I was at Pfizer and I was a doctor, wow, I could get into like any professor's clinic, any doctor's clinic, easy, right? You got a Pfizer business card, you got a medical degree, they're like your medical director or whatever, chief of staff. You get in anywhere, right? You once you're a filmmaker and they say, "What? You're a doctor? Why are you doing this? Why are you even film?" Right? It just sounds ridiculous. Like, you're stupid, man. Like, you should go back to medicine. You can't make any money here. So yeah, it's enormously challenging, and there's many. And also, when I was a filmmaker and doing the mobile film festival, the business model was a lot around sponsorships, going out and getting sponsors, right? And you know how hard that is, Selina, because you run conferences, and I was running a film festival, which is actually even harder in the art space. And I was getting 29 no's to one yes. 29 no's to one yes. So imagine like going to work every day and 30 people tell you no, right? And sometimes it takes you like 1 or 2 or 3 years to get the no, right, from the TV stations and so on that you're pitching to, because it takes so long for them to decide. Um, and you're having to get up every morning after you've just been struck down, and sometimes these sponsorships are so low. So it's very difficult, especially when you're in an industry that you know very little about. So if I had started a business in medicine or started a business in pharmaceuticals, it would be a lot easier. I would have made money a lot faster. I would have been very successful. But I just have always, I've had that self confidence, one, but also two, a strong support network. Parents that were supportive, even though my dad really didn't understand a lot of what I was doing for a long time. But siblings, cousins, friends that kind of helped me get through some of these. Right?
So would you say it's strong will and a support network that really helped you through those difficult times?
Yeah, definitely. And then as you get better and better, upskilling. So really skilling yourself in these area, on various aspects of sales, marketing, financial management, digital product development. So I really studied in all those different areas. I'm constantly studying all the time and learning, upskilling yourself in the technical aspect, how to run a business, financial management, cash flow, even negotiation. As a doctor, money is hardly ever involved, in when you're working in a hospital. And then there's all this negotiation that I just found difficult. And chasing customers, the courage to pick up the phone and chase customers. Again, as a doctor, people are coming to you all the time. They're chasing you. The nurses are chasing you. They're beeping you. They want you to come and see a sick patient. It's the other way around. You got to go and chase. So it's very humbling. And so there are a lot of new skills and very different kind of mindset that you have to shape, and being around and learning from. Also, I built an advisory board of mentors, and that could help me with different aspects that were gaps in my skill set. So again, having those advisors, coaches, mentors, two coaches for a lot of the time as well. Again, critical to developing really fast.
Okay. Previously you did mention that you were drinking a bottle of wine every night. Can you talk about that period? Is this that period of 29 no's and one yes?
No, that was actually the easy period. That was another period where I had two companies in parallel. I was running two companies in parallel. And yes, that was one of those. I mean, one of the companies was still going, and the second one was I spun out a platform that connected filmmakers with businesses that needed video. and that was a better business model as a tech company. But I had real challenges with a lot of the board members. This is the first time I was in a company where I wasn't the major controlling shareholder, and so they had a lot of power, but they did not have a lot of sight on what was actually going on in the front line. And I found out later on that they were somewhat unscrupulous as well, and they were sort of doing the same kind of thing with other entrepreneurs that they were kind of partnered with. And so that was a very, very difficult time because it was not only tricky to generate revenue and profit, but also then the people who should be on your side at the time were working against you. And they had their own agenda, right? They had their own agenda. And I won't go into the details, but that led me, at the time, I used to drink a lot in terms of binge drinking on the weekends. I used to smoke a bit as well, and that just did not go well. When you're stressed and you rely on substances, that was just very unhealthy. And I think one of the things in medicine as doctors, very often we don't apply what we teach and what we counsel patients to do. Like we're not, a lot of doctors are not healthy themselves, and so what's really important. Actually, it's funny because my life in business was what forced me to be healthy, right? Because of this crisis that I had, I got pretty sick, both mentally, physically, and I figured out that I actually have to manage my body and my mind a lot better. Substances are bad for you, and I actually have to take some very courageous steps. And I actually don't drink alcohol anymore. Haven't since 2015. Like really broke that habit. Cigarettes also a bit earlier than that, but again, around 2015, so about 9 years now. So, because I realized that in order to be a high performer and in order to achieve the goals that you really want to achieve in terms of your dream, you have to give it your all. And so, wasting time on substances has been some would say a sacrifice, but really I've gained a lot of my sanity out of that process as well. And yeah, and a different social circle as a result.
Yeah, I think I've heard this. Someone saying you should get drunk on life instead of drunk on alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm still one of the happiest guys at the bar. I'm still having fun. I'm still joking around, and people don't even notice whether I'm drinking or not. Right? The only time they notice is when the orders come in, and I order something, like I order a soft drink, and they're like, "Well, what's wrong with you?" And then after that, they don't notice that I'm not drunk with them because I'm having a great time. And so really, I think that liberating part is the ability to break free from the addiction, because it is an addiction, right? And a lot of people don't actually understand that the normal healthy drinking limit is about 10 units a week, which is just 5 drinks, right? And most people, certainly my peer group, are doing 5 drinks they're doing 10 drinks on a Friday, and then another 10 on Saturday. So, it's an addiction that's so common now that people even don't even know it's an addiction. It's just normal, yeah. They have
When I
no.
was still working, I think there was still that I knew a lot of my colleagues who would get wasted post call. Like they're so tired of
Yeah,
working 36-hour shift. It's like time to go to the bar, and then they'll just drink the night away. Next day they
yeah.
come back to work, and if they're on call again, they'll just repeat the process.
Yeah, yeah, and I used to do that. I used to do that. That was the only way I knew how to de-stress and have fun back then. I don't blame them. I don't judge them because I used to do that as well. But I just had to figure out other ways to get all of that, get my vibe going, enjoy my life, have a good time, and and turn that into habits and behaviors.
Yeah, so you often speak about this concept of Ikigai. I mean, since I've met you, you've spoken a lot about Ikigai. Now, what is Ikigai? How did you discover it, and how has that helped you in your journey?
Yeah. So the Ikigai is a Venn diagram of 4 quadrants that came from the Japanese culture. Now, there's some controversy as to whether it really did, or whether Westerners have actually modified it to suit our management style models. But really, what it is it's a convergence of a Venn diagram that's what do you love doing? What's the problem you want to solve in the world? What are your strengths, and how do you monetize this? And that middle intersection of all those four elements, when you answer all these questions, that middle intersection, that convergence, that is the ikigai. That is where you will get the highest degree of satisfaction and remuneration. And it is also it's where you will get the highest degree of satisfaction of serving others, but also where you'll get the most valued in theory. And it's also some would say that's you call your purpose, your purpose. But I found that to be a shortcut, because my career was this, medicine, pharmaceuticals, then film, then all these other things along the way, which has given me an enormous amount of experience. But the ikigai helped me like connect more of the dots along the way and find exactly what's the thread, what's the hole in the needle where I need to thread through in order to get the best degree of satisfaction and remuneration. And over time, the ikigai can evolve. It can change because you change, you learn new things, your consciousness shifts around how to deliver better value, and you discover more about yourself. But that is a very good sort of like compass to figure out what you want to do next in your life.
So, do you use that often in your journey, like even now?
Yeah, really good question. I've probably done it every couple of years, and but I've done it also a lot for, let's say, clients or friends, and I've even written up a tool that I've put up for free on my website that people can download, because I just found throughout my entire career, because of the fact that I've done so many different careers, and successfully, many people, from CEOs to senior doctors to even students, have come up to me over the years and asked me for, hey, I'm a bit lost, what do I do, a few years I just wrote up the ikigai as a downloadable tool and said, hey, just take this for free, because I was just getting that many requests. So I think it's a very, very good shortcut or compass or navigator for people to work through how they want to go. And for myself, it might even be time for me to do it again soon. But fundamentally, I think, when something is not going right for too long, and Steve Jobs said this, right? If something is not going right in your life or in your work, and you keep asking yourself every day, why am I still doing this? Then that's time to change something. The question is, what do you change and how do you change? That's the big question. Which way do you go? And that's where doing the ikigai again can kind of help you clarify that.
Well, that is actually very, very insightful, because we have a lot of doctors. Like recently, we had this conference, the Healthcare Revolution conference, where doctors are impacting healthcare differently. So I had a lot of feedback from doctors that came. Some of it was they have not been inspired for a very, very long time. And coming to this conference really opened up their eyes. So I suppose for those doctors who are lost, confused, not sure what to do, they should look up this Ikigai on your website and do it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one way to go, and I definitely would recommend it. Doing that, and you're living your ikigai as well, Selina. Because you've created something that's getting traction and communities loving it, and so on. And a part of, and so yes, that's the case. But part of often what I find shifts the ikigai is either you feel internally frustrated at some point in time and you need to figure out where to go, or financially it's just not satisfying your needs, and for some reason it's not working. And it's very difficult to know, hey, do I just get out and change completely, or are there just things in the business or in my workplace that I need to tweak, either about myself or about the workplace? So that's often the challenge. It's also sometimes hard to know where to get good advice from, because everyone's got an opinion, and a lot of people will say, don't leave medicine. You've spent so much time in there already, but they have no idea what the bigger picture is for you. Only you can figure that out. And so, it's really important to figure it out for yourself and own your decisions along the way as well.
Yeah, that is very true because I think as I was practicing, I've always wanted to be a doctor. That was my
Yeah,
childhood dream. And the moment I achieved it and I started working, I just felt I wasn't as satisfied as I thought I would be. I wasn't doing as much as I thought I would be. And there was always that something missing and I just could not put a finger on it like what you mentioned.
yeah,
But since I started running Disruptive Doctors, yes, there are ups. There's also very, very low lows, part
hmm,
of entrepreneurship. But I think I'm very happy. Like I feel fulfilled doing what I
yeah,
do. There
yeah.
is so much potential, so much opportunity, and literally, I don't want to go to sleep because I can't wait for the next day.
Wow. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a really good feeling. Like when you have that, then you know you're doing something right, and you're kind of on the right path, and energetically you'll attract what you need easier. Um, I've had many stretches of months where it was hard for me to get out of bed once I went on this path. Because sometimes you can take those steps, but then you realize, oh my God, that actually wasn't, you know, I'm not just getting the business right, or I'm not selling well, or whatever it is. And then I have to like really think, do I need to change the business or do I need to change me? And often it's change me. I just need to learn something, or I need to shift an attitude or shift a perception around certain situations. And that's where coaches can help, having a coach can really kind of reframe certain situations and understand where you are limiting yourself, and how to kind of unpack that and move through it, so that you can grow to the next level.
Okay, before we continue, I want to share something special with our listeners. If you're a doctor considering a career shift, Disruptive Doctors offers a non clinical Pathfinder workshop that's designed to help doctors like you explore new opportunities beyond clinical practice. Whether you're not sure what to do or what's the next step to take, this workshop is tailored for you. And our next workshop is happening on the 6th of October. And visit our website for more details. Now, Dr. Avi, after your success in pharma and in film, you founded Dr. Avi Global. So, what is Dr. Avi Global? What inspired you to start this company, and what do you focus on now?
Yeah, good question. So with Dr. Avi Global, the business is focused around me supporting leaders from various industries on developing their leadership skills, as well as growing their businesses. So what's slightly different between me and your traditional leadership coaches? So traditional leadership coaches would sort of help you become a better person in your role and lead others, but not necessarily help you figure out how to make more money. Business coaches will help you figure out how to make more money through improving your sales, marketing, operations, and so on. And the two are often quite distinct. I bring both together in one role, and that's really only because of my experience. I could not have done that, you know, 10 years ago, not even 5 years ago, not even 3 years ago. But at this time of my career, after working with over 200 organizations in 6 different countries, helping them across customer challenges, employee challenges, financial challenges, operational challenges. About a year and a half ago, I kind of reached a conversion point where all those experiences are brought into a methodology that I teach, and I run workshops on various subjects that I've just talked about, from time management to team collaboration to upskilling and how to motivate and inspire others. So again, a lot of that comes down to in several different forms. One is, as I mentioned before, coaching CEOs and senior leaders, sometimes one-on-one, sometimes it's group. It's also developing leaders towards how to navigate the future. So often their businesses, I've just done one with an oil and gas company, right? That actually wants to be more sustainable and more green and embrace AI. So I had to show them what was coming into the world, and then bring it back down into how do you need to transform as a leader in order to help your people navigate, these huge complexities that are coming through. Um, And other than that, I also speak on stages. So I'm often a keynote speaker at conferences, and as a professional speaker, you get asked to speak at various different corporate conferences or national or international conferences. So I do that as well, and I share my knowledge that way. And finally, I still do quite a bit of consulting work. So I work with companies to help them build their strategy for the organization so they're competitive and can win in the market. So there's quite a few kind of services in that space, but largely it's around developing leaders and helping them grow their businesses, particularly when times are tough, and the world gets more and more complex.
You mentioned you've managed to clone a Dr. Avi. Can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, sure. So, my clone is was really an idea that came about through for many years now. I've just been thinking about all this knowledge that I have that I've built in my business, the tools and so on. How do I get that to the mind of a manager or a director or a CEO at the point they're thinking about it, right? And I'm starting to build a product around that. And then ChatGPT came along and just blew it all away, right? So everyone just started using ChatGPT. The IP that we built, the data storage behind that, was still uh, very relevant for people's problems. And I was coaching clients and CEOs one on one in person. And so the thing was that I can only do a session with them, sort of like 60 to 90 minutes, maybe once every 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. It was very hard for scheduling, right? And there would have to be kind of long sessions. And sometimes, even when they need me for quick emergency calls, it takes a while to schedule. And these guys are making decisions every day, like really, really important decisions. So I had to figure out, how do I get my knowledge to these people at the point of thought? So when they're thinking about an issue like, oh, I've got a challenging colleague, or I've got a difficult customer, or I've got a political issue with someone in government, how do I deal with that? Or where do I pivot my sales? Or what am I missing in my marketing? All those questions, I had to figure out a way to get them my knowledge. So when clone technology came out, AI came out, and clone technology came out, I partnered with a company to build this out in the Dr. Avi clone, right? And the Dr. Avi clone, I think I'm the first leadership and business coach in the whole Asia Pacific region to create a clone, that's essentially a digital twin that can be used. And that's it right here. You can kind of get it on your phone. And if I was having a challenge right now, so if I was going to say something like, and you can call the clone. So if I call the clone right now, they will see that it's kind of thinking, and then very soon. Hey, I'm Dr. Avi's clone. How can I help? Hi, clone. I'm just talking to Dr. Selina, and she's asking me about changing careers as a medical doctor and how to overcome some of those challenges. Have you got any thoughts about changing careers from being a doctor to another industry? Absolutely. Transitioning from a medical career to another industry can be both challenging and rewarding. I went through this myself, moving from clinical medicine into biotech and pharmaceuticals, then into business strategy. The key is to leverage your medical expertise while acquiring new skills relevant to your target industry. For instance, an MBA can be beneficial. Networking is crucial. Connect with professionals in the field you're interested in. Also, be prepared to start at a lower level, showcasing your unique perspective and problem solving skills. How can I assist you further in this transition? Thank you, Clone. I think that was a good answer. That's it, and talk to you later.
Wow,
So,
that
did you hear
is
that?
impressive. Yes, that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
so, so impressive. You
yeah,
could
yeah.
be accessible anywhere, anytime.
Yes, and it's been uploaded with my history. See, the first part he said, "Oh yeah, I've done that myself," and so on. So I've programmed it with my own journeys and knowledge, and my book is programmed into it, and various other pieces of knowledge, insight, and wisdom, right? So that people can use it and tap into some of those insights
Wow,
in
that
real
is
time. You know.
fascinating. So, if someone wants to get access to that, how can they get it?
Well, probably best just to write to me, and I think I'm not sure at what point we're sharing my email address, but they can just write to me, and I can send them a link to try it out, because it's not yet on our website. It is in some places, but I don't think it's on our website yet. So we'd have to send it out to people.
Sure, no problem. I'll add your email and your website in the show notes after this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So, how do you see your current role at Dr. Avi Global impacting healthcare differently?
Yeah, so some of the leaders that I work with now are healthcare leaders, and some of them are, running, large organizations, and some were small. I've worked with small rural hospitals, CEOs of small rural hospitals, to managers and directors of very large groups of hospitals. And so, what I learned over many, many years is, it's really great to impact patients one on one, but as you know, in all these other roles, you're impacting more the macro level of healthcare and medicine. And what you'll find is that over working with 20 years, the biggest impacts come from the decisions of the leaders. A leader can make one small decision that it can impact a million lives, you know, and it could be a good decision or it could be a bad decision, right? And so, to be able to influence leader decisions is one of the most powerful things you can do to shift healthcare and impact people's life differently. It's really addressing it at a very, very root cause. And so, to do that, you have to really understand what motivates a leader. Some of the pressures that they're under, the sort of the need to actually deliver profits if they're in a private institution, the need to actually be able to motivate and get their teams to work together and effectively. So those are all challenges now that I can solve and help them solve, right? And so therefore, when you help a leader through that, when you help them to make more informed decisions, get more revenue, build up their own leadership skills, the decisions they make are more positive and are more holistic and have a better impact on society as a whole. Their organization, their customers, their patients, and society. So, it's extremely rewarding because I can see the cascade, I can see the ripple effect of when we shift decisions, and the benefits to them as well of learning how to do management and business differently and how to lead differently.
I think that's very helpful, especially for me, for a very long time. I think I had this internal conflict. I became a doctor because I wanted to save a patient, wanted to help. But when I stopped practicing, I couldn't shift my perspective from treating one on one to possibility of impacting a bigger scale of people. Yeah. So
Mm.
if I met you back then, I think my transition would have been a lot easier as well, because that was the one thing that actually stopped me, like was really holding me back in that maybe 2 years of being in limbo, not knowing
Mm.
what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think we have to be very empathetic because we've all been there. And you may decide to just carry on. I've had conversation with um, possibly hundreds of doctors over the last 25 years. Oh, I'm jealous of you. Gone down an easier path. You've got a better life. I wish I did what you did, 20 years ago, and all that kind of thing. But also, they don't see how hard it is in other professions. They only see how hard it is in their own profession, right? And medicine is hard and it's a tough job. And full respect to anyone who's in any clinical specialty. But ultimately, I do believe that when human beings are developed and are developing to do what they're meant to do with a higher degree of satisfaction, with a higher degree of fulfillment, as you said earlier, then the world will actually be a better place because they'll make better decisions, they'll deliver better services, they'll make better products, they'll be less worried, they'll be less stressed, and they'll be more fulfilled. And there's plenty of opportunity in the world, as you mentioned earlier, Selina, for all the things that we want to do, right? And so I think what we've got to do sometimes is just take that brave next step, and also ask for help. Be humble enough to ask for help, and that's, I think, one of the big problems particularly in Asia. There's often this sort of sense of artificial harmony. People don't want to speak up. They don't want to admit they have problems. They don't want to kind of, you know, sort of, they sort of remain stressed without actually voicing their concerns. And so that artificial harmony actually results in toxic internal damage and deterioration. So I think it's great now that we've got things like disruptive doctors and various other avenues and channels for people to find help, seek help, and ask for good advice.
So you made a lot of massive changes in your career. Is there going to be another big shift coming?
There will always be big shifts coming. I've probably got another sort of 15 years in my career at least. And even then, I don't know that I'll retire full time if there's anything as retirement. So I may even have 20 to 30 years in my career. So absolutely 100% there will be shifts coming. But the thing is, that's just life. That's just adapting. That's just pivoting with the changes in the world and the changes within yourselves. I think that's very healthy. But I also have to say that um, I'm super happy. What I'm doing right now is the most fulfilled I've ever been. So with every kind of pivot, I continue to find opportunities that are more and more aligned, and people that are more and more aligned to my highest values. Because the better I know myself, the better I know what businesses or clients I want to take on and partner with, and projects that I want to work on. So look, I'm super happy, and like I said, if any sort of shifts, any major shifts occur, it will be more likely around sort of transfer my services into technology, right? Similar to what I'm doing with with my one-on-one coaching into an AI clone coach, because I think the technologies available now means that you can deliver very high qualities of service, as you heard from the answer given by my clone, and you can digitize and you can scale that, at a massive level. So yeah, I think that's where the shifts might be. Techify some of the knowledge, wisdom, and service that we're doing for good, for human good.
I think one thing you just mentioned earlier that was quite profound is now that you understand yourself, you can know what's best for you and the direction that you want to go towards. Because I think for a very long time also, before I started Disruptive Doctor, I think I didn't really understand what I was good at. I was just doing
Mm,
what other people told me or my bosses told me to do.
mm,
And
mm,
very often, I felt like I wasn't really hitting my potential. Right?
mm,
There was so much, I felt that there was so much in me that's not tapped. And
mm.
it was after I started understanding what I was good at, what I enjoyed, that's how I could just dive all in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your advice for young doctors who are, in that transition phase or at a crossroad? They're not sure what to do with their careers. They want to be a doctor. But in Malaysia, like I think probably in the NHS, you're the lowest of the low. There's so many levels above you. There's so many things you can't do. How would you advise these doctors?
Yeah, look, it's a big question, and I think the first thing I would say is shift to gratitude, which might seem really really odd kind of an answer, but to really, when we look at, I remember when I was a junior doctor, compared with every other profession, oh, I'm not earning this much, my friends are earning that much, blah 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 blah, and it was always very negative, right? But we never looked at the positive side of medicine. So, and we're definitely not the lowest of the low. We're lowest of the low in the medical hierarchy. And yes, we do sometimes get bullying from other parts. But I think you are thrown in medicine. You are thrown into a leadership role very very quickly, like right out of uni you know and most other professions don't get that kind of leadership. The life of a patient is in your hands, like straight away, right after uni. Like there's no other profession that gets that kind of leadership power so quickly. So that is a very significant opportunity, because when you learn from these kind of situations, then those skills can be potentially transferred into whatever it is you want to do in life, whether that's making decisions on investments or making decisions on joining other professions, or implementing other management skills. These are things that you can learn. It doesn't mean you become a fantastic manager, but it just throws you into certain environments that are high pressure, where you can actually build your mental resilience. So I think if Disenchantment in your first few years in any profession is normal, right? It's normal. But at the same time, it's always worth exploring what I call strengths or skills that might be latent, and find other ways to express them, right? Whether it's doing something creative, whether it's dancing, whether it's playing music or the arts, or getting into business, finance, math, technology, and AI. Play, experiment. Find what gives you joy. In that moment, and over time, if you find that that joy is something that you want to spend more time on, then figure out how you craft time to do that, right? And whether that's outside of work or whether that's substituting some work, that's the leap that you need to make at some point, right? But in the meantime, just experiment and find things that give you joy, give yourself plenty of rest. And I know it's really hard with long on-call hours and so on. It can get quite ridiculous. But also surround yourself with people that are sort of friends that kind of nurture you, rather than friends that all get around and complain all the time, because that can be very toxic also. And also, treat your body like a temple. Whatever you put into your body, if you treat your body like a temple, then you wouldn't be chucking crap into it like a garbage truck, right? Toxic, alcohol, or whatever, or gluttony, or eating all that. Like we eat. So I think a lot of mindfulness, meditation, and so on has been extremely powerful in health systems around the world to help people through this, and never be afraid to ask for help, because it's always around if you ask, and that'll help you get through the next day.
Thanks, Dr. Avi. Now, if you guys have been enjoying our conversation and considering exploring new career path, remember to check out our non-clinical Pathfinder workshop at Disruptive Doctor's website. It's designed to help doctors like you discover and navigate opportunities beyond the clinical setting, and we have a proven framework that has helped many doctors find their path. Also, do check out our annual Disruptive Doctors Conference that happens every August. I know the recent one has just concluded, but we have a next one in 2025 where like minded doctors come together and share ideas and impact healthcare differently. Now, that wraps up another episode of Postcall Beyond the White Coat. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Avi and found it as fascinating as I did. Remember, there's always more to being a doctor than in the hospital walls. Now, if you're a doctor who's ready to impact healthcare differently, join us at Disruptive Doctors, follow us on our social media, subscribe to our podcast, and don't forget to leave a review. Your feedback helps us bring more stories of doctors who are changing the game. Now, stay tuned for our next episode where we'll continue to explore how doctors like you are making a difference beyond the white coat. Until then, I'm Dr. Selina. Take care and keep disrupting the norm.